Hello, everyone. We're back. It's the Practice Perfect podcast. I am Jennifer McNamara. I'm your host. I have my lovely co-host, Maya Turner. Maya, welcome back.
I'm so happy to be back. I miss my friend. It's like therapy
I
every
know.
week. And when you don't have therapy, it's just like, you're this close to crazy, but almost not there. So I'm really happy to be back. It's good to see your beautiful face back on this lovely podcast that we really just make a difference in and, be therapeutic in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what we would do without this little show we have here. I every week, we learn so much from each other, from our listeners, watchers, those who support us for this journey. And so it's been exciting. And here we are, almost the middle of August. It's creeping up.
I
It's
know.
kind of like we're in the middle of the beginning to the middle. Like it's getting closer to the middle. But it's August, it's a hot month for many places, and it's also that time period where yeah, a lot of people are on vacation, taking
Yeah.
vacations.
Yeah.
Doctors take vacations too. They take their family, their kids somewhere for the summer, whether it's July or August. And so I know a lot of them are trying to figure out, okay, like, is this a good time for me to take a vacation? Is
Yeah.
it ever? I mean, it's never like the best time, but it's also important to, take a vacation, right? Maya, where is? Let me just ask you this. I mean, it was not in our agenda, but I want to know. Where is your favorite place you've ever gone on vacation?
My fa- California. California.
Really?
Yes. California is so chill. I
Is
was there for the first time in, I believe it was close to Orange County, and I stayed at the atrium.
mm,
And I stayed at the atrium, and after I stayed at the atrium, I literally redesigned my backyard based upon the atrium. I've done
really?
that. Yeah, yeah, and it has created such a different feel that I want that to be the standard. Like if I ever go anywhere, it needs to look like my backyard or it needs to look like the atrium. Lots of live flowers, paths. It's just, yeah, for sure.
I love it. I love that idea. That's awesome. I've been a lot of places too, and I don't know, like I've been to Europe. I've been to Canada, I've been to Mexico, I've been to a lot of places in the United States, but honestly, like my favorite trip that my husband and I have ever taken together, it stands out. It was our trip to Canada. Like I just if I can go back to that time period and all that we accomplished, like we just were in a good spot in our lives too. Like it was just a great time. And so I go back to that trip. Like we always talk about our trip to Toronto and we did Niagara Falls and we just did so
Ooh,
many just the
Niagara
drive
Falls.
and got to hang out. We got to go on one of those like boat rides on Lake Ontario, like a pirate ship boat ride. And it was like we just had such a great time. And so
You know,
like that is one of my favorites.
I was just gonna say, whenever I think of Niagara Falls, I think of the very first Superman with Christopher Reeve, and the baby was like playing. He was like, "Look, Mama, this is Superman." Dun, 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 dun. And he carries the baby, and then Margot Kidder is looking for Superman, and she's like, "Hmm." So that. I'm sorry, I just everything is a movie to me. So that was my
No, it's
life.
true.
Yeah.
You and
So what
me, like there's a movie for everything when we think about stuff. I love it. Well,
yeah,
this is the time, of course, like we go on vacation, right? And we think like, oh, we're good, right? And sometimes we can start to like think about, slowing down, but this is the time where we should really look at our medical practice, look at those hidden revenue leaks that we might think it's okay because we're in a seasonal slowdown. But is that what it is? Or is it something deeper? Sometimes a seasonal slowdown can be confused for some really serious revenue leaks. And so, we want to talk about some of those things and kind of figure out what does that really mean? And we know we need to reset and take a break and it's expected, but is it seasonal or is it something else?
yeah.
So, yeah.
I was just gonna say, and I'm about to get on my soapbox. Soapbox moment. Revenue leaks don't occur until after the AR or the claims have gone out. It takes a period of at least 30 days for you to determine an AR leak, right? Or RCM
Mhm.
leak. So if 30 days is a long time for someone not to do their job. Uh-oh. So when
Yeah.
you think about that and how it takes and how long it takes for it to be on the revenue cycle, it has to be at least 30 to 45 days. So how close are you watching your revenue and how often are you watching it to make sure claims are accepted and paid? Mic drop.
Right. Yeah. So within the process of revenue cycle, we know, and we've probably been to presentations where you have like a cycle. They show you the revenue cycle, right? Where you have the different pieces. You have obviously registration. You have people that actually do the billing, the coding, and prior authorizations are in there. The physician is also part of the revenue cycle because the documentation, right? So we think about that. Like you have denials that are creeping in because over time they're just piling up because nobody's touched them. And so when I was working in the hospital, it was our job to make sure that we had like a deadline to work denials. Like in our system, it told you how long the denial had been sitting there. Like
Hmm.
it tracked it. And so
Yeah.
the managers would run a report to show how many denials were sitting there more than 2 days, more than 3 days. So there are systems in place. I don't know what EMRs people are using out there, but most of them have those tracking mechanisms for leadership or, for those of you in administration to track that. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
so are
Hmm.
you actually having those reports? Like our manager printed out the little sheet, put it next to each of our desks. This is where you're at, and this is where you need to be by the end of the week.
Yep.
Like she was on it. She was tough, but we loved her. Like, because she
Yeah.
was about accountability and training, and she was amazing.
Yeah. And I
Shout
think,
out
go
to
ahead.
Kelly Smith. Shout out to Kelly Smith. One of my favorite
Shout
managers.
out Kelly Smith. You rock.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so good stuff.
I also think that it's systematic, right? Kelly Smith had a system process. It's not at random that you should work AR. It shouldn't be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should look at some claims because I ain't got nothing else to do, right? It should be more so of a systematic process. And I remember back in the day when AR reports were green and white, and it was that, dot matrix printer, but we had to look at AR every single day. And it was always
Mhm.
reflective of the date that the claims were accepted and then the date that you see that the claims were not paid once you checked status. So it was a system. You have to have a system in place and it can't be at random, right? So, in essence, that system has to work when you have the bandwidth to do it. Someone has to be dedicated to it, right? But if you don't have anyone dedicated to it, don't expect fluidity with the revenue cycle when it comes to claims being paid.
Right. And there's also areas in the chart, like your registration, where sometimes the services that happen that day don't make it to the right queue and don't make it to the next process. And they're sitting there and nobody's checking it. So, like, they can sit there, whether they're unsigned or there's a missing piece somewhere, it didn't make it to the right, work queue or however your system's set up, so that it's just sitting there for days and days and no one is checking. So who's reconciling the daily charges to know that every single patient's accounted for, that every charge that could have happened that day is now with the right person?
Well, I mean,
So
it
they have
also
all
goes
the
beyond that. I think it also
Mhm.
goes to a point where someone needs to be auditing to make sure that the verifications are valid for when the charges are produced, right? So
Mhm.
think about the verification of those claims or that patient, right? Because sometimes front end errors will hit because they can't find the patient. So, when you think about it from that perspective and you think about that front end work queue, which is supposed to be for the front desk and patient access, to the back end work queue when it should be when the claims attempted to go out the door, but they found something to be incorrect and the claims were rejected. So you have two pieces that are related to the front end: the information that is provided once the patient is registered claim information to show that that claim was accepted based upon the viable information that was put in the system once the patient was seen.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And so every summer, people go on vacation, whether it's the doctors or it's the staff. And sometimes people go on vacation and they're like the person that does a certain thing. So don't wait until they go on vacation. Please make sure that somebody knows what they've been working on, especially if it's an authorization and that's their job. Somebody should be able to go in and figure out which authorizations are becoming due or things like that that need to be addressed. Don't just be like, oh, that's their job. They'll take care of it when they get back. There are necessary things that don't wait until somebody gets back, right? There's deadlines, there's, things that can't wait. So don't just expect it to just work itself out. And honestly, it's crazy to me how many organizations are satisfied with 65% accuracy. I've heard that before. I'm like, really?
No, that number is that would drive me up the wall. That's like fighting words. 65% accuracy. What are you talking about? But this, I think, again, soapbox moment. I think practices should really take into consideration cross training across the board for people who go on vacation, right? Or like you say, the seasonal leaks, right? So, X person might be burned out. They go on vacation, then you have another person to take up the slack or what have you. Cross training is extremely important in a practice management or even in a revenue cycle process. I mean, it doesn't matter how big your organization is or how small. There should be always someone who knows other people's jobs because they have to understand the entire revenue cycle. It's not just about one person's job. Someone should know what the other person's job is, and someone should know how to train everybody what everybody's job is in the revenue cycle. So, I mean, I think that's my take, and I think most practices will be successful when you use that technique.
Right, exactly. And there's different departments, that handle different things. There's coding, there's billing, of course, we mentioned authorizations. There's denial management. And sometimes people can sit there and just be doing their job, thinking they're doing everything right, and nobody tells them that they've been doing it wrong this whole time. It happened to me once. Like there was not a lot of feedback. And so I was given direction, going along my merry way, realizing that there was a miscommunication, that I wasn't given access to a certain system or I wasn't given access to something. And I kept making the same mistake all the time because nobody told me that they changed it, the process in the system, that with how we were going to do things, right? So again, those things are crucial. Communication, right? Communication is key. So if you start seeing the same thing happen every time, so if you're an AR and you're seeing the same denial come through over and over and over again, are you just fixing it? Or are you trying to figure out how it got there in the first place? Was it truly a payer issue? Or is it something that keeps getting coded wrong? It's coding denial. If you keep seeing laterality issues, like you keep seeing a certain procedure with an LT modifier and a right diagnosis keep going through, I was like, why would you not help someone fix that? Like that's an issue. Education. There's other things, inappropriate modifier usage. I was working on a client once, trying to help them figure out some of their issues. I kept seeing 59,26 every single time they did an x-ray. And I was like,
no,
is this an issue? Like, did they have a setup issue or is someone actually keying in 59,26? And if you're a biller or a coder, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I wanted to just pull my hair out. Like, there are smaller charges, yeah, but without that flip of the modifier, you're not properly, representing your revenue, because the other way around where it's supposed to be is less money.
right.
And obviously going to be a trigger for the payer to see that you have inconsistent billing practices and you obviously don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So let's audit them.
Yeah, but you know what? I was going to say, not only is education crucial for operational procedures, but it also is crucial upon EMR updates. So when you think about EMR updates, right, especially Epic, Epic was notorious for doing updates and it changes and nobody got the notification. So think about the person who's in charge of updates and the workflows that's associated with those updates, right? That can affect how your claims go out the door. That also can create a stagnation in your payment if nobody knows that there was an update and nobody trained, or there was a notification on how to do something because something changed. So you also have to think about whoever is in the office, whoever's in charge of the organization, that the communication, Jen, needs to go out because there was a change and that you need to take this different approach. If you don't take this different approach, you may have claims denials and it's not going to automatically fix. So I think that's another issue that we also need to think about, especially when there's periodic updates. Epic does not do the updates once a year. They do it whenever. I think they do it twice a year. So that also can have an adverse effect in your revenue cycle and claims being denied and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And so as you look at where we are in August, fall is going to be here next month. So, now is the time to think about, kids are going back to school, right? You're going to, depending on what specialty you are, you might start seeing more things like that. There's a lot of things that change in people's lives in the fall. What do they end up doing more of? And are they going to be, the flu season is going to start creeping itself in before too long. So you're going to start seeing that influx. That's true. But right now, look at your denial rates. Where does it sit today? Did you look back maybe the month before, the quarter before? Did it slowly creep up percentage wise? And can you flag where those unexpected increases were? And did you compare that to last year on the same time? Like, what was it like the previous year? And then for coding, looking at maybe audit so many charts to see how long it took the person to get them out. I know that many organizations probably have a productivity system in place, some probably more than others, but how are you tracking coder productivity? Because you're paying these coders, in most cases, a decent amount of money to do their job. Maybe you're starting to think about AI to be more efficient, but you're still going to utilize coders to some degree. But you still need to track productivity, whether you're using AI or using a human person or a combination. So how are you tracking what they're actually doing, especially if they're remote?
Right. Yeah. Um, and again, I think that goes back to operational management, right? And then keeping track of the productivity, right? Because again, KPIs, key performance indicators, are really going to tell you, the things that are lacking by percentage, right? I was once involved in a case where their pay rate was 92%, 92% compared to 65%, which you were saying that 65% was good. But again, these people didn't know any better, right? They wind up taking a billing company to court for 92% rates rather than 65%, not knowing the difference. So it's also about how knowledgeable are you in what's great, what's not so great, and what can improve, right? And then changing those practices to make sure that you hit those KPIs, that you hit those analytics that would say why your revenue is slowly leaking. So I think there's a lot to consider here, especially when you're talking about revenue cycle.
Right, exactly. And so maybe you need to pull in a third party or someone to help you, figure it out, which is what we love to help you do. So, I mean, if you ever have a need to just kind of figure out why you have this, what seems to be a slow leak of revenue, we're pretty savvy at figuring it out and figuring out which department's responsible. It doesn't take long when you run the
Nope.
right report
No.
to figure
I
it
mean,
out.
you can also tell who's making the most errors. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from the front desk as a keying error, or is it coming from the clearinghouse? You could tell all of that by looking at the types of errors and the percentages that are related to those errors and those claim reports. But then again, how often are you running your claims reports? Are you running them every day? Are you running them once a week? How often are you doing that to find out where those errors are and to fix the problem?
Right, exactly. So, and there's just so many things to cover. I remember it was my job to run zero pay reports for my doctors. And I just felt like I had so much training, even as a coder. I had so much training on revenue cycle with my team that I had at the hospital. And I'm so grateful, and I miss working with them sometimes. Yesterday I was actually at a hospital. My sister-in-law was having surgery. She's doing great, by the way. I'm so happy that she's doing so good. She's recovering nicely. But we were at the hospital and I was like, man, I missed this whole life. Like going downstairs, getting a coffee, going back to my desk and like doing the work, interacting with patients. Like I just remember the whole thing. And so it took me back to that time period where I was in a big hospital and just the whole like feel of just getting things done, right? But I remember those days, but I remember how with it our departments were. I mean, yeah, we had revenue leaks somewhere, but I just felt like at least most of our surgical practices, the ones I worked with, they just had it together. And like we had good leadership. We had a really solid billing department and revenue cycle department, and I was really happy to be a part of it. I felt like, oh my goodness. Then when I went outside of that and saw what happens in other departments, I was shell shocked because
Yeah.
you're come from this really tight revenue department, and then you go into health practices that are not so tight, and then you're like, oh wow. Then you really start to appreciate the leadership you had and the
Yeah.
people that knew how to provide training and that knew why training was important and that we were productive and we brought money in because we had this cycle of education, um, good leadership, people who understood KPIs, and people who knew how to reach out to the right person to get it done. And we didn't have to wait on each other. We didn't have to like wonder what our job was. We knew exactly when we came in the door every day which cues were ours, what to work, who to ask questions to. It was never a question. And so that's the kind of environment I think we need more people to get to because I had a great experience. I just wish that for everybody.
It's ironic. But that was a different time, right? I
Yeah.
think now, and I hate to say this, but there are fewer people in the office, one. Two, there is less tangibility when it comes to communication, right? There's less
Yeah.
tangibility. So everything is virtual. So how much control do you expect to have when you are doing everything virtually? So there's no real time to answer someone a question, right? The only thing you're going by is metrics. So the only thing you really see is the number. So you can't really pinpoint unless you dig deeper. But when there was physical people in the office, there was nothing for you to walk across the hall or look to your right or to your left to find out who's doing what. So I think because of the day and age that we are managing RCM, and there's no tangibility behind that, like the doctors can't, oh well, he only has this day few, but well, it's not as important to him on that day when you talked about it rather than the day that it's scheduled. So sometimes there's something that's there, but again, when you don't have that tangibility and that fluidity to talk to people when it's happening in the moment, um it may not be as high as a priority as getting those KPIs because they're distant and you have to wait for the
Mhm.
week meeting or you have to wait for this, that, and other. So I really do believe that, when you're not really conscientious of having those talks, and that ability to look right or left or that immediate response, I don't think it's as important because, you know, you don't feel the connection because it's simply not there.
Right, that's a good point, and I think, with all of the third-party billing companies out there, a lot more people are using them, and they're just expecting that it's getting done, but they don't actually know what's being done, and I work with a company who had this, and I would say the AR department was pretty solid. I mean, they knew AR, and that's fine. I mean, they knew what they were doing, but it was the communication part of relaying those results to the client. And so what I mean by that is that we have these weekly meetings and they would just have a screen, they have like a PowerPoint of like what the results were, but it was just numbers and it was just data and it wasn't explained as to what this actually means. And so like you can just give me a spreadsheet and give me numbers, but you're the ones that are supposed to understand what it means, how it's affecting. And if they don't actually physically know your doctors and they don't know the staff and they're not with them all the time, those are just numbers and they don't really know how to equate or how to explain that data and what it means for real patient care. So I think we're getting away from the true nature of explaining, like, here's the problem, here's the solution. Is it truly fixed? How do you know? I don't know how to get there because we're so siloed.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's just a mess.
Yeah, I think, when you have connections, and connections can only be established, like true connections, when there is tangibility or fluidity in conversation. Okay?
Yeah.
Fluidity in conversation. And what I mean by that is constant check-ins so that you have a real relationship. I mean, and how many virtual friends do we have, Jen? We have a lot of virtual friends that we don't actually get to talk to all the time, right? But
Mhm.
it's that fluidity, that connection, that camaraderie that we have that makes the difference. But if you talk to somebody once every 2 weeks or once every month, and it's just to talk about, are you good? Okay, talk to you later. Then how is that really establishing anything related to how you're doing your job? Right? You're not doing your job the way that you're supposed to, or there's not enough communication to tell you when something is wrong. Not, are you good? No, I want to talk to you because I want to know what you're doing. I want to understand the process that you're taking. I want to know the last time that you looked at a claim. I want to know XXXX. But if you're always leading to them being autonomous in their job, then how are they going to know what's right? How are they going to get feedback? How are they going to be assessed on what's right or wrong?
Mm, powerful stuff. And, we can only do so much, you and I, Maya, on this show. We can only tackle so many things at a time. Like, you go back, look at all of the episodes we've had like all the shows we've done. Like, this is like our fourth show together. And it's like, wow, all the topics we've touched on. And it doesn't do any good unless people are paying attention and taking what we're advising and actually implementing it. I mean, advice, or even if you go and you get an audiobook and you're listening to how to do something, or you're watching a video on YouTube, a how-to video, like, it only does you good if you believe the person showing you how to do something and you actually do what they are asking you to do.
Uh-oh.
So I mean,
Soapbox moment.
we're not going to stop, girl. We're unstoppable. We know we have the truth, right? We have the reality. We have the expertise, and only people that actually believe that are going to listen to us. And so we'll keep doing it, keep doing our thing, and hopefully people get in touch with us and can see that we can make a real difference. But again, we aren't forcing anybody. We just want to make it available. We want to give you the tools that you need to be successful. So I'm really excited about next week's episode, Maya, because what are those 7 words that we hear all the time? But that's how we've
How we
always
always done it.
done it.
And my response to that every single time is, just because you've always done it doesn't mean that you've done it right. Period. Come on, girl.
Did it. So next week, guys, please join us. Tell your friends. Let's make this a banner episode. Everybody needs this episode next week. But that's how we've always done it. Bring your questions, bring your stories. Let's shame some people out there that are saying that. Just kidding. Well, have a great rest of your week, guys. Have a great rest of your week. We hope you enjoyed digging in this week to talk about some of these revenue leaks. Have a great rest of your summer too. We hope you enjoy whatever you're doing. And if you're out there, we're on the road trip traveling, you can find us on your local podcast station. You can watch us on YouTube when you're going to bed. Just tune us in. Have a great week, guys. Thank you for listening to the Practice Perfect podcast. We will talk to you next time.